Hi everyone, let's talk about WWE NXT from April 7th, 2026. Let's talk about it, guys. We are live, and the show kicks off with a video recapping the event of Stand and Deliver, and Vince Joseph and Booker T then greet audience at home as Tony D'Angelo makes his way to the ring, and we hear from Tony D'Angelo, and the live crowd tells Tony D'Angelo that he deserves it, as D'Angelo says a lot of the fans have been with him since the beginning, and he says he was just a kid when he got to NXT, then says he's the first ever NXT Grand Slam champion in history, and says this is something he has always wanted since he got to WWE. And he says no one, including Ricky Saints and Eden Page or Joe Henry's, can take the NXT championship from him. And Joe Henry's music hits. Then he makes his way out and he says D'Angelo is the man. Then congratulates D'Angelo on his census plan and admits D'Angelo was the better man, but for just one night. And Eden Page music hits, and then he makes his way out with Ricky Saints right behind Eden Page. And Ricky Saints says if Eden Page puts his ego aside, he would be a two-time NXT champion. And D'Angelo cuts him off and says no matter who challenges him next, he will come out on top as NXT champion. Then Dark State, also again, Dark State Dark State regrounds the ring, and Daquan and Carter James and Arsene Riffson and Dion Lennox reground the ring, and they begin brawling with Tony D'Angelo and Ricky Saints and Eden Page and Joe Henry as security tried to get things broken up. And Robert Stone, then the locker room clears out to break all 8-man apart during the commercial break, but Tony D'Angelo lands a crossbody to take out several of the talent as all 8 men continue brawling, and security in the locker room eventually managed to get all 8 men broke apart, with Robert Stones informing D'Angelo and Saints and Page and Hendry that they will be facing Dark State at the top of the hour. Then we had Soruka versus Easy Dame with the cooling. Let's talk about it, guys. So yes, guys, this was a good match with Soruka and Easy Dame with the cooling. Let's talk about it, guys. The bell rings and the two lock up, and Easy Dame clotheslines Soruka, then fires up shoulders on her midsection in the corner, and Soruka flies out of the ring and takes out Easy Dame onto the outside, then dumps her back in the ring and rolls her up during the commercial break, and Easy Dame kicks out, and Easy Dame sends Soruka crashing into the top turnbuckle face first, then jams her knee into the back of Ruka's neck and lands a knee on her midsection, and then Ruka rolls up Dame, but Dame kicks out and locks in a crossface on Ruka to wear her down, and Dame then sends Ruka crashing into the mat with a slam and goes for a pin, but Ruka kicks out and fires off a clothesline on Dame, and Dame delivers a duplex to Ruka back from the break, but Ruka catches Dame with a spear, then sends her crashing out of the ring, and Sean Spears distracts the ref as Soruka sets up for a soul snatcher on Easy Dame, then Nickel Finch pulls her out of the way, and Sarya shows up moments later to deliver a spear to Soruka. This opens the door for Easy Dame to deliver a sit-out powerbomb to Soruka back in the ring for the win, and that's how Easy Dame defeated Soruka. Then after the match, Sarya tells Ruka that she said when things end between them. Then Carver then makes his way to the ring as Josh Brooks and Jasmine Troy follow. Then we had a triple threat between Josh Brooks and Carver versus Jasmine Troy in a triple threat match. This triple threat match was a decent match. Let's talk about it, guys. The bell rings and Brooks attacks Troy and Carver from behind, and he sends Carver crashing into the mat and delivers a standing splash, but Carver rocks Brooks with a headbutt and scoops him up, and Troy levels Josh Brooks and Carver with a splash, then gives Carver up on his shoulders, and Josh Brooks breaks things up and lands a double chokeslam on Jasmine Troy with Carver, and Carver then levels Brooks with a right hand and pins Troy, but Brooks breaks the fall and Carver levels Brooks with a clothesline and pins him, but Brooks kicks out and Carver fires off stomps on him, and Carver whips Brooks into the corner, then whips him into the opposite one and fires off stomps on him, then jams his boot into Brooks' chest, and then Troy levels Carver with a clothesline during the commercial break, but Carver jams his boot into Troy's face, and Troy runs over Brooks and Carver with a shoulder tackle, but Carver fires off strikes on Brooks and Troy back from the break, and Carver lands a power slam on Brooks and pins him, but Brooks kicks out and Carver sends him crashing into Troy's into the corner, and Carver counters. I'll say again. Carver connects with a spinebuster on Troy and pins him, but Troy kicks out and levels Carver with a clothesline that delivers a body slam to Brooks and lands a splash on Carver and follows it up with a chokeslam on Carver and pins Brooks, but Brooks kicks out and Brooks levels Carver with a boot, but Jasmine Troy runs over Brooks with a splash, and Carver delivers a body slam driver combination to Josh Brooks for the win, and that's how Carver won the match, guys, and that's how he won Carver. Carver's a beast, I'm telling you guys. Then Joe Hendry and Ricky Saints and Eden Page and Tony D'Angelo make their way to the ring, and Dark State follows, and we have Tony D'Angelo and Ricky Saints and Eden Page and Joe Hendry faces Dark State. Let's talk about this match, guys, which was a fun match, I'm telling you guys. I like this match between the Dark State and Eden Page and Ricky Saints and Joe Hendry. Let's talk about it, guys. Let's talk about this match. Let's talk about it. The bell rings, and Dion Lennox fires off right hands on D'Angelo, and Carter James and Arcis Griffson join in with Griffson whipping Daquan into D'Angelo into the corner, and all four members of Dark State exit in the ring, but Daquan re-enters as the legal man and continues beating down D'Angelo in the corner, and D'Angelo looks to tag in Joe Hendry, but Eden Page instead tags himself in and lands a body slam on Dion Lennox, and Saint and James tag in, but James takes out to Lennox, and Lennox and James sent Saints crashing into the corner spine first, but Joe Hendry tags in as James tags in on his side, and Joe Hendry lands a decline. I'll say it again. Joe Hendry lands a delay since suplex on James, but D'Angelo looks to take out Joe Hendry, and Ricky Saints instead takes himself and fires off stomps on James' midsection that walks the top rope and delivers a chomp to James' chest, and Eden Page then tags himself in and argues with Ricky Saints, and Dion Lennox tags in and whips Eden Page in the corner and charges at Eden Page, but Eden Page moves out of the way, and since tags in D'Angelo, and D'Angelo levels Lennox with a clothesline and dumps in interference. Daquan out of the ring, but Dion Lennox connects with a spine buster onto D'Angelo, guys, and that's what happened right there, guys. And so on and so forth, boom, 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 bang, 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 back and forth, guys, and all that stuff. So yes, guys, I'll be right back, guys. Hi guys, I'm back. My thing is, acting up on me to take the notes and stuff. Then Griffin tags in and uses the mid rope to target D'Angelo's throat during the commercial break, and Joe Hendry and Daquan tag in, and Daquan lands a shoulder on Joe Hendry's midsection, and James tags in and continues to wear down Joe Hendry, but James fires off uppercuts on Joe Hendry, and Lennox lands a chomp right hand on Joe Hendry from the outside, but Miles Bourne blindsides Dion Lennox onto the outside through the crowd and brawls with him away from the ring, and D'Angelo tags in and delivers a German suplex to James and lands a second one on Grimson and delivers a spinebuster to Daquan, but Eden Page tags himself in and delivers a twisting grind on Daquan for the win, and that's how Tony D'Angelo and Ricky Saints and Eden Page and Joe Henry defeated the Dark State. Then after the match, an angry D'Angelo choke slams Eden Page. We then head over to a video from Jetta Parker, who sends a message to Kalani Jordan. Then Birthrights, they make their way to the ring, and Starboy Hill, formerly known as Starboy Charlie, follows. And yes, guys, Starboy Charlie is in NXT now. He was, from the, he was from the Independence. Starboy was from the Independence. He's in NXT now. Yeah, a lot of people from the Independence is coming to NXT now. I can't wait for their momentum and stuff, guys, in NXT. So let's talk about it, guys. So Lena, also again, I repeat it again. Lennox King fences Starboy in a first round match for the WWE Speed Championship in a number one contender tournament. I'm not really into these WWE Speed, matches because they're under 5 minutes, but let's talk about it. The bell rings and Starboy fires up chumps on King as the 3-minute time limit begins. Starboy delivers a Hurricanrana to King and pins him, but King kicks out and the clock shrinks to 2 minutes as King catches Starboy with a back elbow. He then looks to land a moonsault on King off the top rope, but King catches Starboy with a pair of double boots to his face and follows it up with the Corona Nation on him for the win, and that's how Lena Lennox, also again, not Lena Lennox, sorry guys, I'll repeat it again. That's how Lexis King defeated Starboy. Also again, that's how Lexis King defeated Starboy with the Corona Nation for the win, and that's how Lennox King defeated Starboy. I said one of the members of Dark State. My apologies, guys. We then head backstage where Robert Stone betrays Miles Bourne for interfering in the 8-man tag match, and D'Angelo interrupts the part and requests an NXT Championship match against Eden Page, and Robert Stone agrees, and D'Angelo then spots Cover and stares him down. Back at ringside, Tatum Paisley and Shadow Hill make their way out, and Blake Monroe with a second custom Women's North American Championship belt in hand, and Vincent Projects follow, and we see Tatum Paisley and Shadow Hill fences Blake Monroe and Jackson Drake with Brad Brawler and Ricky Smoke. Let's talk about this, guys. So yes, guys, let's talk about it. My whole thing is acting up again. So I'll be right back, guys, again. Okay, I'm back, guys. Let's talk about the match with Tatum Paisley and Shadow Hill fences Blake Monroe and Jackson Drake with Brad Brawler and Ricky Smokes. Let's talk about this, guys. Blake Monroe and Tatum Paisley stare each other down and hold up their respective Women's North American Championship belts, with Tatum Paisley reminding Blake Monroe that she's the world champion, and the bell rings and Tatum Paisley clocks Blake Monroe and Drake, and Hill tag in, but Hill fires off chumps on Drake and levels Drake with a knee strike as Drake stands on the apron, and he lands Drake on the apron and fires off right hands on his chest, but Blake Monroe checks on Tatum Paisley, and Tatum Paisley then takes out Blake Monroe, and Jackson Drake looks to take out to Blake Monroe, but Blake Monroe refused to tag in Jackson Drake, and Tatum Paisley tags in and drags Blake Monroe in the ring, but Tatum Paisley sets up for the cemetery drive on Blake Monroe, and Jackson Drake comes to Blake Monroe's aid, and Blake Monroe accidentally lands a splash on Jackson Drake while aiming for Tatum Paisley, and Tatum Paisley and Hill lock in double the since bow and arrow on Blake Monroe and Jackson Drake, and Blake Monroe and Jackson Drake escape, and Blake Monroe fires off stomps on Tatum Paisley, and Hill and Drake tag in, but Hill delivers a elbow drop to Drake during the commercial break, and Drake sends Hill crashing into the mat with a back suplex and follows it up with a standing moonsault, then stares down Hill's arm with a submission hold. Then Drake jams his boot into Hill's face, but Hill levels Drake with a shoulder tackle and clocks an interference smoke onto the entrance ramp, and Blake Monroe and Jackson Drake then clock Shallow Hill from behind as the ref check on Ricky Smokes, and Blake Monroe then tries to stop Shallow Hill from tagging out, but Shallow Hill breaks free and tags in Tatum Paisley, and Tatum Paisley takes out Blake Monroe and ascends to the top rope, but Brad Brawler looks to push her off, and Hill takes out Baylor and Smoke onto the outside and sets up Cemetery Driver, but instead levels in an interfering Jackson Drake, and this opens the door for Blake Monroe to land a headbutt to Paisley and follows it up with the Glabelier shot for the win, and that's how Blake Monroe and Drake, that's how Blake Monroe and Jackson Drake won, with Blake Monroe doing the Glabelier shot for the win, and that's how she won with the Glabelier shot for the win. Then we head backstage where Robert Stone speaks with Sarah and announces in 2 weeks upcoming special name NXT Revenge, which, we already had that night 1 and night 2, guys, which we'll talk about the night 1 and night 2 later on tonight. I'll be doing this a lot, guys, with you guys. Even though, AEW Collision's on, I'll be doing that later on for that review. But anyways, let's carry on. Tony D'Angelo will be defending his NXT Championship against Eden Page on week 1, which that already happened. Sol Ruka will be facing Saria in a last women's standing match at week 2, which that already happened this week, guys. And he also revealed that Joe Henry will be performing a concert, which that already happened. And then Armstrong will be making her debut on NXT, and a new Speed Championship will be crowned, as Sarah also notes that Kalani Jordan will be going head-to-head with Jada Parker across in 2 weeks, which that already happened and all of that, guys. Then Lola Vice makes her way to the ring, and Lola Vice hosts a celebration for becoming the new NXT Women's Champion and stuff, guys. Let's talk about that again, guys, because, my whole thing acts up and stuff, so I have to go back to the whole thing again. So let's talk about Lola Vice celebration. Lola Vice says she dreams of becoming the NXT Women's Champion. I'll say it again. Repeat it again, guys. Lola Vice says she dreamed of becoming the NXT Women's Championship, then says she thought she was ready for the NXT Women's Championship when she first arrived in NXT in 2022, and she says she thought she would go straight to the top, but she started losing. I'll say it again. She started losing and had to start from scratch by learning what it meant to earn a spot in the NXT Women's division. And Lola Vice admits that she wasn't ready to be NXT Women's Champion. Then she first came to WWE, then says she earned the NXT Women's Championship, and Viral Influence music hits and they make their way to the ring, and JC Jane tells Lola Vice to enjoy her win and says it will be the last win that Lola Vice gets against her. And Linton Reed says JC Jane is the effusion of a Hall of Famer, and JC Jane says she holds the NXT Women's Championship for 286 days, but Robert Stone makes his way to the ring and makes an NXT Women's Championship match between Lola Vice and JC Jane official for week 1 of Revenge, which, Lola Vice retained. And Lola Vice goes after JC Jane, and since Reed crashed it into the mat, then looks to land the 205 on JC Jane, and JC Jane moves out of the way before she can and retreats into the outside with Reed and Fallon Haley as the show went off air. And I gave this show a 9 out of 10, guys. I gave this NXT episode from April 7th, a 9 out of 10. It was a very good show, and I loved it. And that's my opinion on that, guys. This is CJD 2006. I'll say it again. This is CJD 2006. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit those notification bells as always, guys. And peace out and take care and much love. And this is CJD 2006, and we're out.